Shalom, everyone, and welcome. I'm Mati Shoshani. We are live at TBN Israel studio, boots on the ground live. I'm here at the studio joined by Thomas Mora, and our amazing technical team, Micha and Sam here up on the set, and Iga down in the control room. Excuse me. Guys, there is a lot going on. Some crazy breaking news. I'm going to go straight into it, and then we'll recap in just a few seconds. You think the war is over between Israel and Iran? It isn't yet. You think the war is over between Israel and Hezbollah? It is not over yet. We're in the death throes of the Iranian regime in this region. They're kicking, they're fighting for their life. And the news that we're about to cover talks exactly about that. We're going to talk about IDF special operations in Syria against Hezbollah units. We're going to talk about the Iranians booting out nuclear supervisors. We're going to talk about how all of this is going to lead to peace agreements and a new world order. Peace in the Middle East, as we love to say, jokingly usually in this region. Anyway, welcome to the live, guys. If you're joining us just now, we're TBN Israel. We do this at least once a week. Last couple of weeks with the war and the attack on Iran, we did it many, many more times. If you're new to this channel, please drop a like, a share, and a subscribe, and make sure this message gets out to more people. Once again, I'm Mati Shoshani. We're live for about the next 45 minutes, talking about everything that's been happening here in this region. And importantly, we want to talk to you, the guys at home. We want to hear what you have to ask. There's a comment section on the YouTube channel. I'll show you right now. If you pop into the YouTube channel, you'll see exactly that. You'll see the comments on the side. You can leave a question. We have a team over here on the set that's moderating the comments.
That's me.
And Tomil and our team. And we'll go over it in a second. First, we'll hit the headlines, then we'll go into the Q&A part of this session. And if you like what we're doing here, and if you care about what we're doing here, there's a super like button on the button on the bottom that's called, it's two hands shaking hands in a heart shape on the bottom. And it's called a super like. So you drop a small donation, it pops your comment at the top of the list, but more importantly, it shows some love and shows some care. Let's drop into the comments and get started right now. So things have been moving at a rapid breakback pace here in the Middle East. We're coming out last week of a 12-day operation in Iran where Israel strikes dramatically, then joined by the U.S., eliminates much of the Iranian leadership, much of the Iranian nuclear program, but the war didn't end there. We had a ceasefire agreement, but the war didn't end there. And I'm going to read you a couple of headlines that have been happening as we sit here just this last day that are going to show you how intense things still are and how far we are from finishing this operation, this war. So first of all, and then we'll get to what happens next. So first of all, just last night, the IDF captures Iranian terror cells within Syria. So again, Syria is one of our northern neighbors, a country that overwent in the last 12 months a coup d'etat, a violent coup. It was taken over by Mohammed Ashara, who is a former, let's call it affiliate of ISIS, one way or another. He is ruling the country, but the country is not fully in control by his militias. And last night, the IDF special forces capture, listen to this, Iranian terrorism cells within Syria. So this is not Syria. This is a country north of Israel. And inside Syria, Israel's capturing Iranian terrorism cells. So the full headline is that Israeli special forces, they arrest Iranian-backed militants overnight in southern Syria. They find a weapons cache that includes rifles and grenades, and the IDF forces return safely without any type of resistance. But the real headline here is the headline behind the headline, which is the fact not that they captured this terrorism cell, but that there was a Iranian terrorism cell within Syria proper. What that shows you is that this isn't over. The Iranians are still trying to gain points on a PR level against Israel. They're still trying to get some kind of victory shot against Israel. They're still trying to harm the people of Israel. And we have to remain vigilant. We have to remain on top of it. Just to recap, last night, Israeli special forces take captive. Again, we capture Iranian terrorism cells within Syria proper. So from Iran to Syria, we take over people. Very, very dramatic, very substantial, very much something that we need to track with and keep track, and we'll continue to do that. By the way, guys, if you're just joining us, I see that a lot of people are joining the live stream. Welcome. I'm Mati Shoshani. You're watching Boots on the Ground live. We're here at the TBN Israel studio in Jerusalem. I'm joined by Tomer and Micah and Sam and Igal and Gitai downstairs. Say hello, guys.
Hello.
And we're here to answer your questions. That is what we do on our Q&A. We give you answers to the questions of what is happening. We're talking about everything that's been happening in this region. And our first headline was that the IDF captures Iranian terrorism cells in Syria. And I opened with a line saying that this war isn't over. And I want to explain that statement. The campaign in Iran proper, where Israeli Air Force pilots and special forces were attacking, bombing, and assassinating within Iran, that part of it is over. And the part where the U.S. is bombing, well, the Iranian facilities, that part is temporarily over. But the campaign against Iran and its proxies isn't fully over yet. We're in the stage where the Iranians are fighting for their life and for their regime, and they're putting up every level and every type of resistance that they can to harm Israel and to stop this process.
In what ways? Like,
Now,
what they doing right now, besides trying to send terror cells by foot?
So perfect question, Tomil. So the whole war starts with one very, very big premise. And the premise of all of this is take away the Iranian nuclear capability. We're going on a multiple decade campaign where the Iranians are pushing for nuclear weapons. That means enriching uranium. That means stockpiling enriched uranium, gaining the know-how and training the personnel. In this 12-day campaign, or what we're now starting to call the 12-day war between Israel and Iran, aided by the U.S.
It's a catchy name.
It is a very catchy name.
We had 6, now we have 12.
Yeah, 6-day war, 12-day war. Next day war is going to be the 18-day war, maybe. Anyway, jokes aside, so this takes place. And in this process, Israel, with the help of the U.S., it sets back the Iranian nuclear program many, many years. President Trump calls this a total destruction of the nuclear program, but Israeli intelligence and Israeli government is far more cautious in the wording that they use. And we say we've set them back many, many years, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. It doesn't really matter. The point is we said it's a setback versus annihilation of the program. In that time, Iran did stop its attacks against Israel, but the warfare between Israel and the proxies of Iran didn't end. Let me tell you what's been happening in the last week. By the way, if you're just joining us now, take a look at the comment section. You can drop a question, and in just a couple minutes, we're going to go into a Q&A blitz session talking through the questions you have. Tomer here and Micah are looking through what you guys are writing, and we want to take a chance to answer all your questions. But first, let's talk about what's been happening before we get to that phase of things. So we talked about Israeli special forces capturing an Iranian terrorism cell in Syria proper. Second thing, that's last night. Next thing is the Iranians, well, they boot out whatever nuclear inspectors, and they sever the ties of the nuclear inspectors. There are multiple agencies, many, many acronyms to remember. I'll just simplify this for you all. The IAEA is the main one, International Agency for Atomic Energy. They're an international organization, mostly funded and operated by the European governments. And what they're supposed to do, what they're tasked with doing, is tracking the Iranian nuclear program. And Iran, well, they're not a fan of that because they're trying to violate the agreements all the time and trying to race to a bomb. In the background of this, I'll tell you the main story is right now, the reason that they're booting out the supervisors isn't because they're trying to build a nuclear bomb. That's not what they're doing right now. What they're doing right now is they're trying to recover the enriched uranium. So the Iranians, just to recap, they had 3, I guess, main nuclear facilities, Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. Three main nuclear facilities. And most of those are now a huge pile of underground rubble, thanks to American B-2 bombers and BGU 57?
Yes.
57. I'm looking at you, Mike. It's been a long day for me. BGU, anyway, bunker busting bombs created by the Americans.
Days they saw that the Iranians send their bulldozers and stuff, but they don't really digging. And more than that, surprisingly, if somebody can check that if it's not fake, but there is David Starr's.
No, I saw that. We'll get to that later on. No, it is real. It's not related to the Mossad.
No, it's related to the Iranian.
It's related to the Iranian government. Well, leave that
bulldozer
for
guy.
Toma, leave that
Giving
for
a
Q&A. I think that's one of the funniest conspiracies we've seen in a long time. Because if you get into the mind of the Israeli army, it doesn't make sense. So guys, let's stick to what's really happening, because there's been a lot. So Israel, in a 12-day operation, we destroy Iranian air defenses and knock out much of their leadership. The U.S. joins in. We knock out their nuclear facilities. And then what happens is the Iranians are trying to hide what they have of the enriched uranium. And the way they're doing that is twofold. One, before the attack happened, likely, we know this more as a speculation than we do as actual information. But the speculation is, and this is information that's been leaked by intelligence organizations, is that they were able to hide away some of their enriched uranium before the Israeli strike took place on June the 13th. So what they're trying to do right now, by disengaging with the nuclear inspectors, is to safeguard some of their enriched uranium. The reason being is they want something to negotiate with. They know the negotiations are coming, and they want to have something to negotiate with. Another thing happened last night. Was it last night?
What, it was the missile?
The missile.
Yeah, last night, the Houthi missile.
Where was I last night?
We were on the way back.
It's been a long week.
Me, Sam, and Gitai were
anyway.
driving
Wherever we were, I was in reserves also last night. That's where I was. So that's right. Last night I'm riding my motorcycle to my base, and suddenly the thing goes off on my phone. Bap, the foghorns from hell goes off and says there's a missile coming our way. And I was very surprised. Anyway, huge intercept in the sky. One large missile from Yemen intercepted by the IDF. FYI, if this is new to you, the Houthis who fired this missile, they're connected to the Iranians. And they're doing this on their behalf and to support their cause. But it doesn't end there. So they've booted out the nuclear supervisors and disconnected with them. They tried to send terrorism cells from Syria into northern Israel. It doesn't end. Now we have satellite images that come out that show the extent of the damage created by the U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. And like you're saying, Tomil, we've seen from satellite images a huge amount of engineering equipment, heavy machinery, parked outside, getting ready to start working on these things. And the Iranian prime minister and several in their government admit, this is their quote, serious and severe damage was caused to the Fordow nuclear facility, which, according to them, was a research facility. If you're just hearing this, I was giving
saying the truth. They're researching for uranium for a bomb.
Yeah, they were researching how to build a nuclear bomb. That's what they were researching. Anyway, and the Russians, of course, were not helping them build a bomb. The Russians were sending experts to help them research nuclear bombs.
Yeah. For green.
But that of course, I'm not
energy.
saying that. That's just other people saying those kind of things. I would never allude to such a thing. Then Hamas hostages negotiation intensifies. So here's really the big picture here. And I need to pause for a second with the headlines to explain. President Trump comes out, help me, Toma, last night.
Yeah. It started, around noon.
Let's say yesterday, then into today. He comes out and he says, and I'm paraphrasing here because he said a lot. He said, there's a clear winner in this last sort of conflict. And the name of that winner is the U.S. and Israel. And there's a loser also in this conflict. And their name is Iran, but not just them. Also, Hamas is about to join. And there's more that goes into this.
He said, I need to call Bibi. We need to party our victory together.
Yes.
We'd celebrate. He says, yeah, that's what he said last night. We need to celebrate our winning.
So Trump doesn't, he's not ashamed to call things as they are. No diplomacy lost here. He says very clearly, there's a winner in this conflict. The U.S. won, Israel alongside it. We beat Iran. It's time to celebrate. And I need to signify how important this is. It's time to rebuild the Middle East. And there's one really big piece that has to be resolved, and that piece is called the Hamas hostage situation in the Gaza Strip. Just to remind you, as we sit here, many, I don't want to say the exact number, let's say tens of thousands of Israeli soldiers are maneuvering through the Gaza Strip. And the reason they're doing that is to eliminate Hamas strongholds in the Gaza Strip and release Israeli hostages.
99 came back, so it's 5 divisions
5 divisions are still in?
They brought one back. So it was 4 division until yesterday, and yesterday they start to put 99 back, and 98 is
back into the Gaza Strip.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's many divisions. I don't want to go too deep into this because it's not really what we're focusing on today. But the IDF is still operating in the Gaza Strip, and President Trump says, as part of this big celebration that we're having, Israel, the U.S., we beat Iran. We're building a new Middle East. We're reshaping the relationships. We're going to have new Abraham Accords. We'll get to that in a second. Part of that deal is we're taking Hamas off the table, literally and figuratively speaking, and we're bringing back the hostages. There's been very strong statements both from President Trump and Ambassador Huckabee in Israel, U.S. Ambassador Huckabee, stating that Israel has the full support of the U.S. to operate in the Gaza Strip until we bring back those hostages, and also that there's a maximum pressure campaign on Hamas through Qatar, through Egypt, to materialize that agreement as fast as possible. And that really leads us to the main point of this entire live broadcast, which is we're in the transition phase of ending the military armed conflict and moving into diplomacy, let's call it on a high octane.
Israel agreed already to the deal.
Well, to the parameters of the deal. Yeah, Tomo, what you're saying is correct.
Usually, Hamas is saying no. I think it's the 40 or 50 time we're saying that there is a deal on the table to end this war, and Israel is saying yes,
and Hamas says no.
And Hamas saying no.
Yeah, I mean, Israel wants to end the conflict in the Gaza Strip, and Hamas doesn't because it doesn't serve their true agenda, which is to bring destruction and death and suffering. They have no agenda that is positive. So the big headline here is that all of this material, let's call it military operation, and all the conflict and all the military actions that have been taken, all that big win that has taken place, it all is now it's pivoting towards reshaping the agreements in this region. I want to explain what that means. It means picking up the rubble left behind by Iran and its proxies and rebuilding nation states in its place that are based on trade and agreements and sharing of information and technology and open trade routes. It means bringing in the Saudis into a new Abraham Accords, and we'll get to that later on in the live broadcast. And it means sort of wrapping up this Iran-Hamas story in a way where Hamas is no longer a fighting force and they give back the hostages, and Iran is no longer aspiring to nuclear weapons, and they give in to the demands of Israel and the U.S. That's sort of the big move. And that brings us to, let's say in 12 months, 18 months, to a brand new Middle East where Israel and the U.S. are superpowers now the U.S. already is a superpower. Israel is the emerging superpower in the Middle East, where we have free trade, where there's oil and natural gas flowing, there's ships crossing the seas undisturbed, and we're looking at a time in a season of economic and financial, and which is the same thing, and social prosperity across this region. Sometimes it just get carried away with with synonymous words. Anyway, so let's pause here. First of all, if you're joining us,
there's a couple of questions that I
was going to say it's time to take a couple of questions. Thank you to all of you guys who are joining us on this live broadcast. I'm Ati Shoshani. This is Boots on the Ground Live. We're at the TBN Israel studio in Jerusalem. We're here, guys, day in, day out, in Israel, on the ground, speaking Hebrew, wanting to bring you the truth of what happens here in this country. I'm joined by our amazing team, Tomer and Micah and Sam and Gitai and Tomer and Gitai and Igal downstairs, sort of running the machine here. And we're here to take your questions during this next session. We have about half an hour left to this broadcast. And before we do that, let's talk about the sponsor. Tomer, who is our sponsor today?
It's ImpactIsraelToday.com.
Who is that?
They rebuilding Israel, and they helping kids and joining and volunteers and doing good in Israel.
Okay, so let think.
No.
This is why we're talking about this. So I want to give you a snapshot of what reality has looked like in Israel for the last, how many years at this point, how many months. It's been a time of trauma, time of distress, a time of war for the children of Israel.
Just on the way here, you told me that you talked to a friend that just lost his house.
No, earlier today I was in a meeting with some friends, and we're talking about. I apologize. I was late on doing something. So sorry, I've been in reserves for the last couple of weeks, and the guy says, "Don't worry about it. I lost my home last week. That's what we've been living in Israel. It's been dramatic. It's been tough. Right now, there are hundreds of people who are left homeless in Israel. Some who are injured. Some still have trauma. There are parents who are, looking for their belongings in the rubble. Most of the people have been accounted for in Israel. I believe all of them at this point. But there is a hope. We've received a dramatic amount of help and aid from international community, and right now, you can be part of that. So the International Christian Embassy is there helping the people. They're feeding the hungry. They're clothing those who are cold. Not this season, by the way. Right now, everyone's hot. They're holding the broken, and they're even planning summer camps to help children smile again. But they need your help to do that. So again, these are people who are our friends, and I want to be very clear about this.
ICJs.
Yeah, ICJ. These are people who we've known and worked with for many years, and they do a whole lot to aid the people of Israel, both in times of routine and in times of distress. And right now is a time of distress. They're a sponsor today for this live broadcast. You need to go to the website. It's on the screen. It's two different domains. It's impactisraeltoday.com. That's impactisraeltoday.com. Give what you can. Help rebuild this country. Help aid and bring peace to the people of this country. And remind everyone in Israel that the international community of both Jews and Christians stands with them and loves them. And I want to say this. We have felt that love and we have felt that support throughout the war. I felt it when I was in uniform. I felt it when I was back at home. And we plan and we know that it's going to continue to come. Take a moment, drop a quick donation to these people. And guys, if you're joining us now with this live, drop a like, drop a share, drop a subscribe. It helps us get the truth about what's happening here in the land to people around the world. Guys, we have time for some questions now. Let's go.
Okay, why is Iran digging the bomb sites?
Why is Iran digging in the bomb sites? William finds people. Great name, William. Great question. Iran is digging in the bomb sites because they want to retrieve their enriched uranium. They've spent decades and tens of billions of dollars obtaining enriched uranium and the facilities. The facilities are mostly lost. They're trying to retrieve some of the enriched uranium. So once again, in the future, they can build a bomb or, depends how you look at this, have the ability to give up the enriched uranium when the negotiation about that comes. But all in all, I'd say they're trying to hedge their bets and their position, and they're trying to retrieve enriched uranium to get that.
Who is running Iran now?
Still the Ayatollahs. Iran.
He disappeared a bit. He's still hiding or something. Khamenei.
Yes. Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, a very humble and unassuming title. Excuse me. The supreme leader of Iran, well, he's been in hiding. He was in hiding. Toma, I would be in hiding too if the U.S. president in Israel said they were considering assassinating me.
He's not just in hiding. Apparently today also the new, how it's called, the new chief of
staff?
Yeah. Ali Abadi. He tried to keep his name as it's funny.
It's funny. Israel, and this isn't a joke because human life is dear and precious. But during this war, Israel eliminated much of the Iranian leadership, political leadership, military leadership, IRGC, which I would call it, let's call it revolutionary terrorism leadership, and also much of their religious Ayatollah leadership has been removed. And by removed, I mean assassinated. So some of their leaders are not actually, they don't want people to know who they are. So much so that they refused to advertise the name. And then the Israeli intelligence came out in Parsi, said, by the way, the new chief of staff, his name is Ali Abadi. So let's take another question.
Will you assassinate Khamenei?
I probably won't have the pleasure of doing that, but will. But if my country would call on me to do it, I would. I don't know what my capacity would be. I would try. But will Israel? I don't know. I think I'm going to find out at the same time you do. Maybe 5 minutes earlier, since we read the news in Hebrew. Israel, has played with the idea, toyed with the idea, and the U.S. has told the world that Israel has been toying with the idea. The main point here is, and this is something that's often discussed in international relations, etc., is the evil you know right now is sometimes better than the evil that you don't know. Iran has been destabilized dramatically, and if Israel further destabilizes it, we have a problem. And that problem is Iran might sort of crumble into faction fighting, and it makes it very, very hard to reach an agreement. And my sense is that's why we still have, that's why the supreme leader of Iran is still alive. Sharon says, I love Israel. Sharon, we love you too. Thank you.
Let's see. There is somebody that watched your episode about drones, and he wants to know how much Israeli drones cost.
Who's selling Israeli racing drones? So, one, thank you for watching that show. That was one of the funnest things we filmed in a while. I wish we could have shown you everything we saw off camera, but we have a piece on our YouTube channel of
a week ago.
When it aired? It aired a week ago on about it's essentially one of the killer suicide drone units in the IDF that use race drones. By the way, these race drones are something you can buy off the shelf. They're not manufactured in Israel or by Israel. They're off the shelf pieces that were retrofitted with fuse. What's the word in English? With a detonator that works on impact, an impact detonator, and obviously a C4 brick. But aside from that, they were off the shelf pieces. Fascinating story how, again, these group of civilians sort of recruited themselves into the army and created a solution to a problem for a very cheap price tag, and did it effectively. James says amazing drones. Yes, 100% agreed.
That's the guy that want to know exactly how much they cost. You will need to search online.
No, they told us the drones they were using were about $1,500 or $1,600 for the hardware, minus the explosives, obviously.
Sam's trying to get a preview of it here real quick to show people.
Yeah.
I can pull it up on my computer, Sam. You have it?
Nice.
Here we are. So we're playing a video of that segment. It's called "Smuggled Drones Used by Israel's Mossad." It is that one. That's right. Anyway, the Israeli army, by the way, like the Ukrainians, this war has been doing unbelievable things. Look, there's my bald head talking to a man whose name we can't say, talking about how they used suicide drones to kill terrorists, both Hezbollah and Hamas terrorists. Amazing people. Amazing use of technology. They're doing things that most air forces, do for $200,000-$300,000 minimum. In munitions, they're doing it for $2,000. Absolutely incredible. It's worth a watch. And the way the IDF has utilized drones, I've seen this also firsthand myself in this war, has been very, very fast in deployment and very, very effective in its deployment. One of the cool things they did, by the way, which I didn't know until we filmed with them, was they did the first airdrop with a drone during this war. They dropped supplies inside Lebanon to an armed force. And you can see them here eliminating terrorists using suicide drones.
It's a good article.
Yeah.
Go to watch it. Is Israel's secret service, Mossad, still in Iran?
I can only imagine that they are. So the question was, is the secret service, is Mossad still in Iran? Look, the joke was a week ago that
bases there.
that an Iranian missile hit the Mossad headquarters in Tel Aviv, but no one was hurt because everyone was in Iran. that was the joke. And at this point, I watched 2 days ago. I watched an interview with one of the former heads of Mossad, and the guy, again, these people are very limited in what they can say, but essentially he says, like, look, what you've seen, there's a TV show created in Israel called Tehran, created, by the way, before the war, not by the Mossad, by the way. And in that operation, things go wrong. There's Israeli agents that, they're on the run from the Iranian government, and they're Israeli aircraft that are shot down over Iran. In reality, what the Mossad did in Iran was absolutely mind-blowing. I think everyone in the world is deeply impressed by what we did. There are jokes going around that might not be a joke, that the Mossad managed to get wives of people in the government, high up in the government, to be operatives for them. The Iranians, just to give numbers here, a week after the strike started, they were claiming there were over 1,000 people that they arrested
they killed.
It was 300 that they hung that day.
Yeah,
they executed over 300 people within a few days of the campaign starting, saying that they cooperated with Israel. I have to say this. Look, that level of intelligence, where Israel was able to track dozens of high-level and high-ranking officials who had security details in live time, assassinate them live and do this time and time again when they knew we were looking for them, we must have had a huge amount of human assets on the ground, a huge level of penetration into their intelligence organizations, and probably a lot of help from inside. And I have to say, this isn't really surprising. Unlike Gaza, where most of the population supports Hamas, in Iran, the majority of the population is against their government. Many of them write us on YouTube saying, we don't like the government of Iran. We love Israel. We see it every time we talk about them on YouTube. I know people personally who've left Iran in the past that say the same thing. We know that. Hey guys, let's pause for just a second. If you're joining us on this live and you're new to this channel, you like, you share, and subscribe. It helps us get the truth out to other people. By the way, today's show is sponsored by the International Christian Embassy in Jerusalem. These are people who've been standing with Israel, aiding the people of Israel in a time of need for longer than I've been alive. And that is important because they have boots on the ground here in Israel, pun intended. And they've been helping the Holocaust survivors, the families that have lost their homes, people in need before and during this war. And if you go to the domain on the site, it's called impactisraeltoday.com. Again, impactisraeltoday.com. Make sure to give them a substantial donation to help support what they've been doing in Israel on the ground, aiding people in need. And let me tell you, there have been people in need in Israel. This last attack by Iran, look, we intercepted, I think the last number I heard was close to 86 or 87% of the missiles launched at Israel. Still, there was a lot of damage caused to universities, to homes. Countless families in this country lost their homes, and they need your help rebuilding. And the ICJ, the International Christian Embassy in Jerusalem, are helping them do exactly that. So make sure you get behind what they're doing. They are today's sponsor, and they're doing amazing work here on the ground in Israel. Let's see if we have a couple more questions, and we'll go back to some of the crazy stuff that's been happening.
Will the ceasefire with Iran last?
I don't know. I think that's a really good question. The question is, will the ceasefire with Iran last? I was very sure a week ago that it would, and I feel, how do I say this politely? The Iranians are
sneaky.
They're sneaky, and they're just masters. Yeah, thank you, Toma. that was the most polite word I could come up with.
They say one
in Israel. By the way, I can say this because I'm on my father's side from Iranian descent. Iranian Jews are known as like the master hagglers, and that is like and people who are cheap.
Wait, isn't that Yemenites though?
No, Yemenites also. Yemenites they're just stingy with
But Iranians know how to do business.
Iranians know how to haggle, and again, there's an element of bias there.
Stereotype.
It's a stereotype. Thank you. But the reality is these people, their government, they play the long game, and we've seen them time and time again, sort of outmaneuver Western powers that be, and they've done it time and time again. My hope is, and I feel like we're on a very positive trend. The U.S. and Israel, and I think many of the European countries, they've dialed in dealing with Iran. They've realized they're now we've got the squeeze on them, and we're not letting go till we get what we want. And what Israel wants, what the U.S. wants, what the Western countries want is the same. No more bomb for Iran. And once we get that, we'll have an agreement. And if they try to weasel their way out of that, well, I think there'll be no ceasefire.
No.
And I think that because President Trump has said that if Iran goes down that route, if they try to, once again, obtain nuclear weapons, if they try to break the ceasefire agreement, then we're going back to war. And I think if we've learned anything in recent weeks, is that Israel and the U.S. have absolutely no problem, no hesitation in using force against Iran. Do we have another question?
Yeah. What are the latest news from local militia that is fighting against Hamas?
I think I know what they're talking about. The question was the local militias fighting against Hamas. There's a headline that comes out about 2 weeks ago.
It's still running.
It's still valid.
Wait, I will get you
that. Essentially, so it sounds like a conspiracy theory at first, and essentially it says that the IDF is funding factions within Gaza that are fighting against Hamas. And when I say factions, I mean other terrorist groups within the Gaza Strip. Let's just be honest about it.
Let's know the guy. His name is Abu Shabab.
Yeah, and very generic nickname.
Yeah,
So
And he is fighting Hamas. He's a Bedouin.
yeah, so the story is, I'll try to make this, it's a very long story. I'll try to make it short. The big problem in the Gaza Strip is there is no replacement for Hamas. Why is there no replacement for Hamas? Because they killed all their competition, and they ran them out of the Gaza Strip. So the IDF and the US and several other countries have looked for solutions. How can we send in goods without them being hijacked by Hamas? How can we fight Hamas without having to send troops in? And we've been looking for factions. And at first, the IDF tried to work with heads of Hamulot, which just means tribes in Arabic. And what happened there is
The drug dealer
Hamas,
before.
yeah, Hamas assassinated a bunch of people overnight. They went into a bunch of family homes and just killed the leaders of the families. And now, what's his name? Abu Shabab?
The father of the guy, of the friends.
Shabab just means, it's a generic term for like a group of young men, essentially,
Yeah.
a group of people. Anyway, they're a Bedouin origin militia that is more oriented towards trade and smuggling than they are towards warfare. And the IDF was using them. And I don't know if, did we hear this officially that the IDF was paying
We
Islamic
don't know.
Jihad? Islamic Jihad? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
There was a, I don't know if I read this officially or heard it unofficially.
It was unofficially.
I think it was unofficially told to us that, said to us that the IDF was paying, or the Israeli government was paying Islamic Jihad for information on Hamas. Oh no, I remember where we heard this. We can't say the name anyway. So we heard this, and that Islamic Jihad was giving up Hamas positions in exchange for money. So essentially, we were using our enemies' enemies to fight our enemies. And I know this for a fact that some of the tunnels that were discovered in, well, we know this from hearsay, I guess, more than as a fact, that some of the tunnels discovered in Gaza were discovered because people within Gaza were giving up information on Hamas, which is a very positive turn of events for Israel.
It looked like the barrier of scared that the Gazan population was afraid from Hamas, at least in some areas, starting to get weak, and people start to demonstrate more and go take the free humanitarian aid from the facilities. And until now, only yesterday, I think it started to work regularly without problems, and they didn't need to close the station of. Let's check that.
Totally, you're making a very important point, which has been an uphill struggle to try to feed people in the Gaza Strip. I want to say there's a headline here which people I think forget often, is that from what we understand, I haven't heard otherwise since this came out, Israel is essentially paying to feed the people of Gaza.
That's true.
I've heard this said by people in the Israeli government at this point, and I'm starting to think, I think someone in the American government said the same thing. Anyway, we
other funders too. What do you mean we're paying for it?
We, the Israeli citizens, are paying for food
Our taxes.
From our tax money, we're paying for food to go to the people of Gaza.
I know that they're sending in our soldiers to take it to them and stuff like that, but we're
we're paying.
We're
We're
the main
paying.
We're the main funders.
Yeah, we're the main. Again, this isn't. So let me just say this unofficially, but said by many sources and not denied by anyone. So take it as you want. Israel is one of the main supporters of the people living in Gaza. This wasn't the case the entire war. I want to be clear about this. In this recent turn of events, this gets long. Yair and I did a live about this a week and a half ago, talking about the fact that many of the international aid organizations would rather not give any food to people in Gaza than the food not go through Hamas. This isn't how they framed the conversation, but the minute the IDF figured out a way to distribute goods without it going through the hands of Hamas, several UN agencies, several international food agencies stopped providing aid to the people of Gaza. When was this? 2 weeks ago we did a live about this topic, right? 2 weeks ago. That hasn't changed. The majority of the food that's distributed now in the Gaza Strip, not all, but much of it, comes from the Israeli government, is apparently somehow funded by Israel, not entirely, but we're not sure, and is distributed by an aid organization that originates in the US. But let's call it, all signs indicate that Israel is one way or another paying for this. There was, in the last week and a half, there were convoys of goods that went in from international aid organizations. And I know that because we know with absolute certainty that aid went straight into the hands of Hamas. It's this ridiculous reality that's taking place in the Gaza Strip right now. Let's take another question, then we'll recap what's been going on. With Yemen still attacking Israel, do you think Israel will attack the Houthis in the same fashion as it did in Iran? I don't think we don't have to attack the Houthis to the same degree that we did Iran. One, the Houthis, I think it happened so fast recently that even we in Israel have been forgetting. The U.S. did a 6-week campaign over Houthi-controlled Yemen, 6 weeks of bombing, in which they dropped an incredible amount of munitions over Yemen, knocking out a bunch of Houthi targets, eliminating some of their leadership and many of their, let's call it, strategic assets. And the Houthis, for a time, were quiet about it until about a week ago, and they sort of maintained the ceasefire. The Houthis in Yemen don't have anywhere near the ability to disrupt the same way the Iranians do, so we're not going to have the same level of military operations there to bring destruction to them. Also, they're not an organized country, so you can't really completely stop them. They're just they're a well-funded terrorism organization, but it's spread out over a vast stretch of land. So let's pause for a second. We've been running for a while. I want to sort of recap what we've been talking about. So first of all, guys, if you're joining us now, and it's sort of hard to track in live, but I can tell viewers come and go while we do the live. You're watching Boots on the Ground Live. I'm Mati Shoshani. We're here in downtown Jerusalem, filming at the TBN studio. I'm joined by my amazing team, Tomer, Micah, Sam, Igal, Gitai downstairs, running magic in the control room. And we're here to answer your questions about what's happening in this region as we speak here. It has been an amazing, a fast-paced, a dramatic, a historic couple weeks or 3 weeks in this region, sort of culminating in Israel's 12-day operation and war against Iran, humiliating and bringing down much of the military power of Iran in this region. And we are now in the place where President Trump has been talking about the day after victory. He's framed this conversation as Israel, him and Prime Minister Netanyahu need to be celebrating the win against Iran. And now we're at the point of talking about reshaping the power dynamic and the, let's call it the treaties in this region, talking about a new Abraham Accords in this region, talking about the fact that Israel can now enter into agreements with other countries and bring a time of peace and calm. And as we talk about that, we covered the fact that while Iran is defeated internally in Iran, they haven't stopped trying to attack Israel. And what we've seen them do, we've seen them unleash, last night, Israeli special forces stopped a terrorism cell within Syria that was Iranian. We've seen multiple attacks attempted by the Iranians, and we're now trying to bring an end to the war in Gaza against Hamas, which again is also controlled and supported by the Iranians. Sort of all arrows, all roads lead to Tehran, and Tehran, which is now diminished in its power, has to sort of reach, well, doesn't have to, would be wise to reach an agreement with Israel and the Americans, and hopefully that leads to the next phase. I want to take 2 minutes and talk about what the Abraham Accords could look like in this region. So the Abraham Accords started in 2021.
Yeah,
in the middle.
We start to talk about something happening 2021. They happened.
Yeah. So again, it's a series of agreements and accords between Israel and other countries and the U.S., which promote economic growth and cooperation and technological and information and financial cooperation. It's between Israel and Morocco.
15th of September 2020.
2020, yeah, late 2020. Between Israel and the U.S. and the UAE and Morocco and several other countries in this region. The big country that hasn't joined yet were the Saudis. And the Saudis are sort of on the fence about joining in the months leading up to the October 7th, 2023 war. And I guess they were waiting to see where the winds would blow with this conflict. And now that the Iranians have been, just being honest here, publicly humiliated, and their vulnerability has been exposed, now we know that it's time for an agreement. And now there's a discussion between Israel, the U.S., the Saudis, and I'll get to one more country that really cares about this, and reaching an agreement that reshapes the power balance in the Middle East. There's one more country that is desperate to be part of these agreements, which is Qatar. Toma and I were talking before we went live. The Qataris are a very small country. They're under 1 million people in population. I think they're only 300,000, 400,000 Qatari nationals and many foreign expats that live in the country. They don't have much of an army to speak of, and they sort of make a point of aligning themselves with the superpowers to have protection. Once with the Iranians, then with the Americans, and back and forth, and rinse, wash, repeat kind of thing. Right now, they want to be part of an agreement that includes the U.S. because they're afraid of retaliation by the Iranians. So everyone in this region is sort of in a place where now would be a good time to reach an agreement with Iran that eliminates their nuclear program, and now would be a great time to have regional agreements that allow free trade, that allow shipping goods to sort of travel the seas safely, allow gas lines and oil lines to be run across the Middle East, and for economic prosperity to sort of take place in this region. And what it takes to get to that point is a weakening of Iran to be able to get to that conversation. That's exactly what we did in recent weeks. And now we can sort of reap the peace dividends of that process and reach a place of having a conversation about growth and cooperation versus violence and let's call it additional terrorism by the Iranians. Let's go back to some Q&A. Guys, if you're joining this live broadcast, check out the YouTube channel. And on it, on the right-hand side, you have a chat. Drop a question. Tomer here is picking out the best ones that are relevant for everyone and bringing them up. And there's also an option on the bottom. There's a little 2 hands shaking hands, sort of a little icon like that. And you can do that to make a small donation and be part of what we're doing here. So let's see what question we have. Can those countries that join the Abrahamic Accords be trusted? Yes, as far as any country could be trusted. Countries are creatures of interests and comfort, not what does the agreement say necessarily. As long as it's worthwhile for people to uphold the agreement, they will uphold the agreement. If things become volatile and dangerous again, people have to question their agreements. The fact that the peace or the Abraham Accords have lasted so long indicates that it was worthwhile for the previous parties. The fact that we're once again talking to the Saudis about it indicates that it's a worthwhile thing.
But do you think that the countries that already signed Abraham Accords can be trusted? Yes. I think this war proved that.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, so
those accords are one of the best deals Israel got into.
But also for those countries, it was a good deal. So let me talk about a couple of things that took place in the last 2 years that might not be obvious to people. So there's countries that we beat on a military level. We eliminated much of Syrian air defenses, and that allowed freedom of flight for Israel over Syria to Iraq and then to Iran. But then the Israeli Air Force was able to fly over ally countries, fly over UAE, fly over Saudi, fly over Jordan, fly over Qatar possibly. We were flying freely over the Middle East without the threat of detection, information being given, or intercept by any of those countries. That shows you how the power balance and the sort of alliance blocks have shifted in this region, I think more than anything else. Hey, TBN Israel, greetings from Stockholm, Sweden. Thank you, Per Haglind. And thank you, Rosie, for saying Shalom Israel. Great emojis. Love that. What other questions do we have?
Give him a hard one, Tomer.
Okay, this one.
Wait, Tomer, what were you asking earlier that we said we needed to visit?
The Stars of David.
Okay. Can we pull up that picture?
Yeah, give us.
So let me set the background information on this story here. 2-3 days ago, a story starts trending on social media globally, but especially in Israel, where there's satellite imagery of a bunch of Star of Davids in Iran, and then the headline that ran in Israel, and I won't name the person, but was also circulated by a member of our team.
I wonder who.
Yeah, who could it possibly be? Anyway, the headline that starts circulating is the following: Israeli special forces during this last conflict carve in the ground outside of Iranian military bases. And by outside, I mean like on the fence of the military bases, these massive Star of Davids that are the size of the entire base. And then, this goes on for a while, let's say a day. And then several people who were thinking logically say, guys, this doesn't make any sense at all. Why on earth would Israeli special forces traveling inside Iran No, there's
a better one.
image of that.
There's 4 of them. It's close.
It was like that is a Star of David in Iran, but there was
שלשום מגן דוד ותעשה ניוז מהשבוע האחרון.
Yeah, and so I'll explain anyway. What it was apparently, or the story goes, is that the Iranians, when they were training infantry training and possibly and more likely Air Force training, had targets that had Star of Davids on them. And the reason they had that was because they were simulating attack. And it makes sense when you think about it. It's not very likely that Israeli special forces would spend time on the ground digging ditches outside of Iranian bases. It would make more sense for them to destroy the
Iranian soldiers.
Yeah, okay, there we go. So just to give you an idea, what the building over there is an entire base on the right-hand side of the screen.
Got bombed.
Yeah, it's a base that was bombed. And next to it is a massive 2 stars of David, and then what looks like a circle and a star in it. Well, those things likely are, very likely, and you see the craters on the upper target, the upper Star of David, is their targets for Air Force training, much more than they are for what Israeli special forces did. Instead of bombing a base, spent a couple of days digging ditches in the Iranian desert in the shape of a Star of David. But the story is nice. It is an amusing story. Let's see some questions.
I'm disappointed. I wanted it to be true.
Has Israel agreed to a 60-day ceasefire with Hamas? Yes. Israel, by the way, as a general rule, every time the U.S. or Qatar or Egypt or anyone else says we're trying to barter an agreement between Israel and Hamas, agree to a ceasefire to get your hostages back, Israel automatically says yes. Every single time. Hamas automatically does the opposite. They say, yes, but actually we want you to commit to ceasing to exist and to never fight a war against us again in exchange for the ceasefire agreement. And essentially, they're just blowing us off every time.
That's a big question.
Oh, Gail asks, why are the courts trying to take Netanyahu down? He exudes great leadership.
He is.
Oh, how much time do we have?
We need another hour for that.
Let me just say this. Israeli politics are complicated like any other politics. Prime Minister Netanyahu has shown amazing leadership in recent weeks in taking action against Iran, as our entire military leadership and government. But there are a lot of things that are going on in Israeli politics they're a long story, and I'll just say this politely without making stating a political opinion. Prime Minister Netanyahu has been indicated to be part of a bunch of questionable activities, and they're being investigated in Israeli courts.
Some of them are funny, some of them are not.
Some of them seem more as like an anecdote that is funny and indicates a very bizarre way of doing business. More of them indicate that the people in his inner circle engaged in criminal activity. And that's really where the proof is. And I won't go into all the details here because it gets very complex and honestly not really interesting for an international audience. The main story here is that the courts are having a really hard time proving that something was done illegally by Netanyahu directly, but there have been multiple cases where people in his inner circle have been found guilty of criminal activity and have been removed from public service or, by the way, arrested, including last month. So this isn't hearsay or anything like that. And I want to say this, I wouldn't say that the Israeli courts are trying to bring down Prime Minister Netanyahu. There's a whole debate going on in Israel about the power balance between the executive branch, which is government in Israel, and the judicial. It's a really long and honestly tedious story. I'll just say, if you try to understand internal politics of another country, take a week to watch YouTube videos in another language to get an idea, because I'm sorry, we're not going to be able to resolve it today. I'll just say that oftentimes people that end up in the president or prime minister role, they're complex individuals, and they're able to do things that me and you are. Yeah, they're able to do things that me and you are not able to do or not willing to do, and that goes into bravery and taking action where, they do terrifying things that might, you might pay an incredible cost in human life, etc., for in many years to come. But sometimes they also they blur the lines between what's allowed and not allowed, and they reshape that conversation on a daily basis.
Okay, our feed and comments are blown with the question, where is Yair Pinto?
I don't know. Tomo, where is Yair Pinto?
Traveling around.
Yeah.
You will
No,
see him tonight later on Boots on the Ground show, as usual. So stay tuned to TBN Israel and click the subscribe button. It's super important. Support us in any way, if it's through the donate button and or the super thank you button. And I think last question.
Yeah.
Check out his Instagram.
Yair, by the way, is just to make a long answer short, he's in the U.S. with his family. He'll be back shortly. But he's still capturing content on a daily basis, and this channel is going to have a news report with him in a few hours. We have time for a couple more questions.
What is your plan against Hamas?
What is my plan?
That's what they're asking.
What is our plan against Hamas? Israel intends to bring down Hamas, and we intend to do so by eliminating their access to cash, killing what remains of their fighting force, releasing the hostages, and creating a new government and leadership system in the Gaza Strip. That is the intended and official goal of the Israeli government.
So let's sum it up with the power shifting of what's going on in the Middle East right now.
Okay.
We're standing before a week of decisions.
So let me frame where we are. Thank you, Tomo, for helping us refocus. We're in the victory lap of what was military action that's about to turn into diplomatic action. Israel, with the aid of the U.S. in supply and then in direct military action, in the past 18 months, we've destroyed our enemies, and we've been beating them up one after the other. First Hamas, then Hezbollah, then other militias in this region, in Syria, etc., then Houthis, then Iran. We've made history in the level of operations that have been carried out, the efficiency of those operations, the strategic nature of what was done, the reshaping of the power balances in this region. When the U.S. stepped in a couple of weeks ago to bomb in Iran alongside Israel, we reshaped the history of this region. And right now, we're on the cusp of being able to capitalize on the changes that will take place in that power balance. Soon, it's going to take a matter of weeks, the political map of this region is going to change, and it's going to start better reflecting the reality of what's happening on a military level. What happened on a military level is the arms of the Iranian terrorism machine, the proxies that they created, have been toppled one after the other. And at the end of this process, they no longer have the power to shape the history of this region, at least not for years to come. And because of that, a new power can rise. Israel has risen to the status of a regional superpower, of a kingmaker almost in this region. The U.S. has gone up a couple more notches in both respect and perception of power in this region. And now other countries can align with that agenda, with that new power balance, and say one of two things. We want to join in a pact with you that is military support, economic trade, and growth, or help us reshape our country. And the countries that are talking about are Syria, that are talking about joining the Abraham Accords, which is unbelievable when you think about that, or Lebanon, which is saying to the international community, thank you for helping remove Hezbollah. Now help us rebuild the country. And along that line of countries come a very long line of other countries. The Qataris that want to be part, the Egyptians that want to be part, the Jordanians that want to be part, and the list goes on and on and on of countries that want to be out of the influence and the sphere of damage of Iran and build a regional pact that does trade, that does commerce, that does sharing of ideas, et cetera, and all of that sort of under the umbrella of, if you mess with us, then the U.S. and Israel are going to come and get you. And that really is sort of the era that we're stepping into. Soul says, "Yep, Israel is my Israel. You have my prayers and blessing to make war with God's chosen." Yes, thank you for the support.
From Toronto,
Yeah,
people
from
just
Toronto.
sending love all over the world.
Yeah. So anyway, guys, if you've stuck with us so far, take one more moment and pause this video, like, share, and subscribe. It helps us get the message out to many more people. And I want to remind you once again that this region this country has taken a beating in the last year and a half. We've documented a lot of that, the damage to northern communities, the damage to communities around the Gaza Strip. This last round with Iran saw buildings and blocks, city blocks in the Tel Aviv metropolitan being blown up by Iranian missiles. A lot of damage. Many people lost their homes. Many people were damaged. Many people were injured, and some were even killed. And they need your help. And to give that help, to give that support, today's sponsor is exactly the address for you. We're today sponsored by ICJ, the International Christian Embassy in Jerusalem, good friends of ours, good friends of TBN, good friends of our team, people that have been on the ground in Israel supporting the people of this land for many, many years. And right now, if you want to make an influence and make a difference for the people of Israel, align with the people that need help, give aid to the people in this country, there's an address on your screen. The address is impactisraeltoday.com. Again, impactisraeltoday.com. Put that in your browser and make a donation to help the Holocaust survivors, the families that have lost their homes, the families that have been injured, those in need in the country of Israel. And there are many of them that need that. And they need two things from you. One, they need material support. And two, they need the knowledge of people around the world standing together with them in prayer and in support in this time of need. That is a sign of both the spiritual alliance that we have across the world and also of God's faithfulness to the people of Israel, because we know that people align with the message that's been happening here, God's message, God's support for the people of Israel, and the love and the care that we've seen from the international community. Guys, once again, I'm Mati Shoshani. This is Boots on the Ground Live. Thank you for joining us for this live broadcast. Thank you for standing with us. Thank you for helping us spread the truth of what's happening here in the land with people around the world. God bless you all, and make sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the next video.
Bye-bye.